Okay, guys. Today we're going to be talking about the leader meta, current leader meta with Romance Dawn. Right now, there's 13 leaders, and then I might talk about some of the upcoming ones. One of the common criticisms on every single video is, why do I sound so dead? Okay, and the answer to that is, it's just my voice. Deal with it. I can't get excited. Okay, I try my best. This is the best you'll get. So, okay. So for starters, right, as you can see on the screen, these are just some of the colors available now. I put two of each color. So right now in the meta, there's only four colors, which is red, blue, purple, green. But in the future, we will get two more colors, which I will quickly give you guys a look at. With obviously black right now being mostly navy cards, and yellow will be the big mom pirates. Okay, so black will come out with the second set, which is Paramount War, and yellow will also come out with the third set, which is Strength of Pillars, which looks like a very interesting set. It hasn't come out yet in Asia, but will next month. Okay, so to start with, let's talk about the starter decks. So starter deck Luffy, okay, is actually quite a good card, and it's a card that I quite like because I play Luffy, have played him in tournaments. Okay, so we look at his ability. His ability, as you can see, it says here, give this leader or one of your characters one rested Don card. Okay, now it sounds like quite a simple ability, but it's quite good because a rested Don card means that you can play a Don card on another character. Okay, so you can place. So for example, say you have three Don cards and you use three to put a three cost character in. Okay, they'll all become rested, and rested Don cards are normally unusable. But Luffy means that you can give that rested Don card to a character. Okay, and in fact, with the current rules and the way it works, is that if you have characters like rush characters that need two to start, you can give them a rested Don card, and that would count towards their ability. So Luffy, in terms of rating, I would give Luffy a very like S tier rating. He's very currently very playable, and arguably his starter deck is one of the most viables in the long run as well. The next one is Eustace, Captain Kidd, and even though sadly Green isn't played as much, at least in the tournaments that I've seen, in the EU meta that I've seen. Okay, it seems that red and purple seem to be dominating the meta. This card is actually S tier. Okay, so let's just go over the ability quickly. Okay, so you can rest three Don cards. You can rest three Don cards from your cost area, right? Okay, and for that you can trash one of the cards from your hands, and you can set this leader as active. So you might be like, okay, but you're getting rid of three Don cards. Okay. Now, the reason this is good, okay, is you're basically playing three Don cards for an additional go. So, for example, okay, say you've got Eustace, he already does 5,000, okay, like every leader does 5,000. So you can attack with him, sacrifice three Don cards, and get another go. Okay, and if you have Don cards on top of Eustace, for example, you could say you have 10 Don cards, right? So it's end stage, okay, and you give five of them to Eustace, that would take him to 10,000 strength. Okay, you could hit someone with 10,000. Okay, then sacrifice three Don cards and hit them again with 10,000. So in terms of playability, he's quite OP. Okay, so that makes him a S tier meta card. And in fact, I think in terms of overall tournament rankings, he is in the top four characters, I'd say. Next, we have Crocodile, and Crocodile's quite quite sad. Okay, which is that literally useless as a card. Okay, he is playable, and in the starter deck, he might be useful. But the point is that starter decks, that meta didn't last very long. Okay, because starter deck meta was only during the pre-release. With Romance Dawn, his playability has dropped sort of significantly. Okay, so let's look at why that is. Okay, So his ability is Don -4. So that means that you can basically, if you've got 4 cards, whatever 4 cards in the field, so there can be active Don cards, there can be rested Don cards, there can be Don cards on characters. Okay, you just have to give up 4. Okay, and what that does is that it returns up to 1 character with a cost of 5 or less. Now, you might think that's good because obviously if you have a 5 cost character, they will normally have quite high damage. Okay, but if we actually look at the blue cards, okay, so like on blue cards generally, okay, they don't have a lot of high hitters, and also since you're sacrificing 4 Don cards, which is obviously 2 turns worth of Don cards, okay, even if you get a 5 cost, okay, you can't really use that 5 cost for another few rounds anyway. Okay, so Crocodile's ability is only really useful maybe in a late game, okay, but otherwise throughout most of the game it's an ability that doesn't really have any use, which is why blue has sort of fallen off and isn't very usable in the current meta, at least with Crocodile. Okay, and next obviously we have Purple Kaido, who I have to say is one of my favorite cards. Okay, so the only 2 starter decks I did get was the red deck and the purple deck, so I have them obviously in hand. If you guys have seen any of the other videos, the other 2 I've played with online in simulators. Okay, but in terms of Kaido, he literally, his ability is -7 Don cards, trash the top card of your opponent's life. So his ability is literally -1 life. And you might think, okay, but it's -7. Okay, but this works. And so I know before I said that -4 isn't very useful. That's because for blue, -4 isn't very useful. For purple, it is, because of the way purple is set up. There's a lot of cards, okay, in purple, which I'll put up in the screen right now for the edit. Okay, so purple stage, for example, gives rested Don cards. Okay, purple also has very high cost characters. Okay, so for example, if you had 10 Don cards and you played a 7 cost king, okay, which is one of the highest cards in the game. Okay, so say you decided to play a 7 cost king, and he can, okay, just remember that for king he can use his ability of -2. But even say you have 10 Don cards, you use king, okay, and that will take you to 3 Don cards, and even if you use king's ability, that will take you to 1 Don card, and you would still have 7 rested Don cards. You could use those 7 rested Don cards to immediately remove 1 life, like without fail. Okay, so in terms of a card game where the opponent only has 5 live cards, okay, Kaido is very good. The only counters to Kaido, of course, are cards that have sort of high rush. So Luffy, red has high rush, and also yellow, because yellow manipulates life. So although yellow hasn't been released yet, so we can't truly tell how good it will be in the meta, from what we've seen in sort of the card releases so far, yellow seems to be quite good. They can literally add life back. So the most recent card, which I'll put on the screen, is that they showed the secret rare in the Pillars of Strength. Okay, in that secret rare category, literally adds a life back, which is OP. So as of right now, though, Kaido is very high. I'm going to give him an S tier. Okay, very usable character, very strong meta. So now if we move on to the Romance Dawn pieces. So first we have Zoro. So I've put his alternate arts here as well, as you can see. Okay, now Zoro is right now, okay, it's sort of mixed, because in the current Romance Dawn meta, he's highly competitive. So I would give him an A tier. Okay, now a lot of you guys watching might put him in S tier, and I understand why you put him in S tier. Okay, he is arguably one of the best leaders. His ability is all your characters gain plus 1000 power, which is ridiculous, because it means that if you give him a Don, he'll go to 6,000, and with it, everyone gains 1,000 power. Okay, so it makes everyone a lot more viable, especially in the red cards where there's a lot of low cost, high power cards in red. Okay, now the reason I've put him on A right now is because Zoro truly shines. Okay, with Paramount War. Okay, so with the next set that will come out, I think in March for EN. Okay, that is where Zoro will very much shine, and he will immediately shoot up to S tier or maybe even Z tier, where he dominates the meta. But for now, where even though he is good, okay, the red selection is quite limited. Okay, I'm gonna say that I'll put him at A tier because at least for me, I prefer someone like Luffy who is good for a defensive reason. Okay. Next is Trafalgar Law, and even though I put Kid as the best green leader, Law would be sort of his main competition. Okay, so if we read Law's ability, it says that once per turn, using 2 Don cards, okay, if he has 5 characters, he'll return one of the characters to, like if we have 5 characters, we'll get one of the characters back, and then we can swap that character with a cost of 5 or less of a different color. Okay, now just to come close to the mic and tell you guys how OP this is. Okay, it doesn't say that your character that you take up has to be cost of 5 or less. So with this ability, you could literally have a red 1 cost character and replace it with a green 5 cost character. Do you understand how OP that is? Okay, so with Trafalgar Law, you can have a very interesting meta, and I've seen some really ridiculous plays where people have literally done things like in your first few goes, you'll play like 1 cost, 2 cost, 3 cost characters. Okay, so you literally start the game, and within 3-4 turns, you have 5 1, 2, 3 cost characters. Okay, and obviously if you want to use them, you can, but I've seen people who will just tank hits, okay, and just don't not use their characters. Obviously, if you use your character, you'll be able to get killed, right? But if you don't use them, unless the person has the ability to remove a card at a certain cost, okay, they'll just stay on field. Okay, so you have 5 1, 2, 3 cost characters, and then you just start replacing them. It's just the most cyclic, most annoying meta that I've seen. So for that reason, I'm putting him in S tier. He really is a very good card. He's one of my favorite characters, and I like how they sort of displayed his ability room within the ability, because that is his ability, right? He can switch places around. Okay, and that's sort of what he does in his ability as well. So I very much like that. So that for that reason, I'm putting him as S tier, and I'll probably give him top 4 as well. Okay, next we have Luffy. Now this card has been used quite a lot in terms of like promos. So it's been in the tutorial decks, which by the way aren't usable that much. Tutorial decks. I've seen some people complain that the tutorial decks are weak, and the reason for that is that they were there just to show you how to play the game. Okay, in terms of his ability, if we read it, you can use 4. You can obviously use 4 cards, 4 Don cards, and you don't have to rest them. And for that, you can set up to one of your supernovas or Straw Hat Crew type characters with a cost of 5 or less as active. Okay, and it also gains plus 1,000 power during this turn. Okay, now is this good? Yes, it is a good ability. The only sort of problem that I have is that it's limited to the characters with a cost of 5 or less. Okay, and what that means is that even though initially it might be good, okay, if you actually think about it, 5 or less characters are better during the beginning and mid stage. Okay, However, since this uses up 4 Don cards to do, okay, it basically means that you're playing each turn with 4 less Don cards, okay? So it means that you're quite limited during the mid game if you do decide to use this ability, okay? So especially with green and red, where 5 cost characters are common, as in if we pull up on the screen right now, I'll show the red and green characters in Romance Dawn with 5 costs. That's not to say that isn't completely useless. It is usable, and I have seen people use it in the meta. It's just not as common. So in terms of the meta-analysis website that I use that sort of analyzes all the tournaments and winning decks, I've seen about, I think, 2 or 3 games that I've won um, using this Luffy card. So I only sort of remember one. So in the deck, for example, he used Luffy mixed leader, and then the aim of the deck was basically entirely low cards. Okay, so he had 1 cost Otama, 1 cost Nami, 1 cost Chopper, and then he had 3 cost Zoro, 3 cost Robin, etc. So most of them are low cost cards, and then he had 8 cost Kid for endgame. So this is sort of the opposite of earlier things. Like here, I said that with here I said like this is a problem. Okay, for like earlier gameplay. Okay, this is sort of the opposite where it means that you're sort of restricted to wait until endgame. Okay, which is obviously problematic. So for that reason, I'm putting Luffy in A tier because he is usable. It is a good ability. It's just not very sort of realistic with the current cards that we have. Next is Odin. Um, Odin is a good card, just wasted with a sad ability. And what I mean by that is that his ability is good. As you can see, you may trash one country type card from your hand, and you can set up to 2 of your Don cards as active. The problem is that it's restricted to Wano country. Now, I know what you might be thinking, like, well, yeah, isn't that good though? Because Wano country is most of Romance Dawn. Green cards are Wano country. Yes, but also, okay, it means that you're sort of restricted with the other sort of half, because as we know, green also uses supernovas. Okay, it has law, it has Eustace Kid. Okay, so it basically means that the green starter deck, for example, isn't very pliable with this leader at all. So it means that you're restricting yourself in terms of cards that are used. So for that reason, I would put him at B tier or high B tier, maybe low A tier. Okay, but personally, I don't really like using him. He seems quite restrictive, and hopefully, I think with Paramount War, he might get a bit better. But as of right now, I'm gonna say that he's quite low tier. Next, we have Duffy or Doflamingo, and honestly, this card is one of the best cards in the game. One of the best leaders, and it's arguably he's the best blue leader. Okay, well, he is the best blue leader. There's no real argument about it, unless we consider maybe Mixed Kaido, which we'll talk about later. Let's talk about his ability. Okay, you can rest, obviously, one Don card, and you can reveal one card from the top of your deck. If that card is obviously the 7, if it's a Warlord type card with a cost of 4 or less, you can play that card rested. Now, that ability is good because it basically means that you can just autoplay characters. Okay, the sort of problem that I see with it is that blue is very sad in the current meta. It's a hard card to play because blue cards sort of have this weird thing where they're very well designed. They have a lot of good characters, okay, but they just, like, for example, this says with a cost of 4 or less, okay. So as of right now, in terms of blue cards has characters like 9 cost Mihawk, it has 7 cost Crocodile, okay. And yes, it does have a lot of 4 cost characters. It has Bart Hancock, it has Bethune Umu, it has Marshall D. Teach, Pacifistas. It's not that his ability is holding back blue, it's just that the cards in general for blue haven't been the best. Okay, and what happens is that this might be good in your first few, like, beginner mid game, but by end game you'll be hoping to get a higher card. Okay, so like basically you can autoplay characters, yes, but by the end where you're wanting to get high cost characters, this ability sort of runs its course. Okay, so that's sort of like my problem with a lot of some of these cards. Okay, like if we look from the start, okay, this is always useful. That's why I gave Luffy S tier, because start to finish this ability will be useful. This ability, okay, useless kid, start to finish is useful, okay, because even at the start, like if you're turn 2, you'll have either 3 or 4 Don cards. You can use this, you can hit someone, use it again. Okay, this ability Crocodile I said was bad. It's the same thing, Don -4. Okay, unless you're sort of like going to end game, it just becomes a very hard sort of thing to use. And then Crocodile I said was usable. Okay, Crocodile is the only exception that I've made to the entire game usable. Okay, because obviously your argument now would be I put Kaido high, but Kaido isn't very usable the start or middle. But the further reason for that is that purple itself is made to set up Kaido. Okay, like the other characters, most characters have abilities that will give Don cards. Even the stage will give you a rested Don card, etc. So you can easily build up your Don cards within your first 3-4 goes and immediately start using the ability. And then Zoro, same. His usability is good throughout the entire match from start to finish. You can use his ability. Trafalgar Law, once again, like at the start you can have low cost characters, and that means that during end game you can start switching characters quite easily. Yeah. Luffy as well, this is one of the problems that I have with Luffy, which is that since you can only put a character as active again, and it costs 4 Don cards, it's sort of restricted. And then same with Odin, it's useful obviously throughout the game, but restricted by its only Wano country. So in terms of that, I'd say that Doffy is quite good. Okay, that his ability is quite good. It's just restricted by blue itself. Okay, but yes, I would definitely say that Doffy is the best blue leader, and that if you do like blue, you should consider using him. It's not that blue is completely unusable, it's just that in the current meta, blue has sort of a harder time surviving. And then we have Kaido, also mix blue and purple. Okay, I like Kaido's ability, so I'd say that in terms of tier, I'd put him the same as Doffy. We read it. Once per turn, when one of your opponent's cards is KO'd, you may add 1 Don card from your Don deck and set it as active. So this is what I mean, that purple is very good at like building up Don cards, and this is quite good as well, especially since you have a lot of high cost purple characters, like for example the 10 cost Kaido, who literally once you play 10 cost Kaido you can almost one shot the enemy. In a tournament that I played, I was on 1 life and my opponent was on 3 lives, and I only literally just survived because on that live card was 10 cost Kaido. So on the next go I was able to play 10 cost Kaido and sort of managed to make myself live for a while. So for this reason I would say that this Kaido is very good because you can like purple is a very hybrid in terms of attack or defense. Like red, for example, I would say that red generally is a rush deck. Okay, if you're playing red, your ability, your like sort of thought process should be putting characters, putting Don cards on them, getting high cost, like a high power, okay, and just hitting. Like all you want to do is hit, okay, until you wipe out your enemy. This is very good, which is that they have high attack but also high defense. Okay, so for this reason, that I'd say that Kaido is for me at least A tier. I'm open to discussion about this. That's fine. Next, we have Crocodile, and just like the other Crocodile, Crocodile is sad, very sad. Okay, it's just so sad because Crocodile is such a good villain. Is quite well liked by fans, but both of his leader cards suck. Okay, and you might be like, why does it suck? Well, let's read it. After you activate an event, you may draw 1 card if you have 4 or less cards in your hand and haven't drawn a card using this leader's effect during this time. Now, I know it sounds confusing, but just to explain it, what it means is that you use an event card, okay, and you only have, if you don't have a lot of cards, so say your hand only has 4 cards, okay, and so far you haven't used Crocodile's ability. I don't know why they said this. They could have just said once per turn. But okay. Once again, just they didn't care about this card at all. Okay. But yeah, so after you activate an event, so if you use an event card and you have 4 less cards, you can draw a card. Now, I guess that's great if you don't have a lot of cards and you want a card, but generally, like, it seems to be a card made for emergencies, and if you're playing with the thought process that you're not going to have very much usable cards in your hand, then I think that you're already sort of bound to lose anyway. So in terms of meta-analysis, I don't think I've seen anyone use this card. In fact, I will look through again for first place. I think I only remember 1 second place with Crocodile. And in terms of the deck, it's the same thing. You have a mix of blue and purple, but it seems to be more carried by getting lucky with the cards that you draw instead of Crocodile sort of carrying the team. And then lastly, we have King. And honestly, King is so bad. I don't know why they played King with purple. Okay, he's beyond sad. Okay, it's almost, I would say that is racist with how they did it. Okay, like, let's just read it. If you have 10 Don cards on your field, all of your opponent's characters have minus 1000 power. Okay, so first off, that means that to use this ability, you would have to be turn 5 at least, okay? Or turn 6, okay? Turn 5 or 6 when you have 10 Don cards. Unless, of course, like that's just based on minimum. With purple building Don cards, you can probably get hit by turn 4, okay? So say turn 4, you get 10 Don cards, okay? And everyone gets minus 1000 power. That's great for that turn. Except what happens if you use any of the high cost characters that have, like, just on the edit right now, you will see the amount of purple characters that I'm going to put that say -1 Don card. Okay, purple has so many cards that removes Don cards from the field. So for them to use King, it's just sad. It's just outrageously sad. So for that reason, I'm gonna say he's B tier, and he's the lowest of B tier. Okay, He's so trash that I'm gonna shoot him away. Bye bye, King. Okay. So now we have Uta. So this is a promo card, but since the promo cards have been released, at least the Uta deck has been released, I wanted to talk about it. Um, Uta's ability is you may rest the specified number of Dawn cards, which is obviously one. So you can rest one Dawn card to do this. Up to one of your characters without effects gain plus 2,000 power during this turn, which without effects means that it doesn't have this, right? So it doesn't have any ability or effects. Yeah, so if I pull up the cards, okay, without effects, you have Carrot, you have Komachio, you have Sai, okay, which by the way, all of them are 2 cost, 1 cost. And then you have Harridan, which is 4 cost. You have Marco, 3 cost. You have then just the promo cards, which are mostly without effect, and most of them are 1 cost. So basically, this card is only really usable if you're using the promo cards from the Uta deck, which I wouldn't really suggest because, like, there's so many better cards that do have effects, and effects are powerful. So for this card to exist is, like I said, just for the promo cards to be playable. Cards like the 8 Shanks that has 10k power. If you want to play that card, use this. I mean, you don't need it on Shanks because once again he has 10k power. Okay, so I would say that realistically this card isn't that useful. If they wanted to make this card useful, they should have done all characters without effects gain 1000 power just as a like sort of balancing. But yeah, so that is all the currently released leaders. There's one more leader I want to talk about just because he's going to come out soon, and that is the leader Shanks from the purple movie deck. Okay, now if you look at his ability, Dom -3, and it says your film type characters gain plus 2,000 power during this turn. Now, I know I've said that characters being restricted aren't great, but once again, this is a starter deck, okay? And his deck is entirely film characters. So in terms of his deck's playability is quite nice. I would give Shanks maybe an A or a high B tier because of his ability is quite nice. Obviously, you're basically saying that all your characters that you have displayed gain plus 2,000 power. So he's basically like Zoro, but with slightly higher cost like abilities. So for that reason, I would say that he's A/B tier. But we will see when he comes out and how the meta uses him. Okay, so that is every card. Be sure to discuss in the comments with me in case I'm misunderstood any cards, in case you have any questions, in case you want me to expand on any of these. I have some of these cards. I have a simulator, so if you want me to show you some games using certain decks or certain leaders, I don't mind doing that either. So yeah, thank you guys for watching. Bye bye.